So this was originally just gonna be a video about that anti-Trump Judge Boasberg. But honestly, guys, I am shocked at what I found. What if I told you that for over half a century, judges have been openly violating the law? So you guys remember this dude Boasberg, right? He ordered the deportation flights to be returned.
Tonight here in Washington, there is a tone of defiance coming from the White House as a federal judge is still waiting on answers from a Justice Department that doesn't seem eager to provide them following that testy court hearing today. Now, all of this started when President Trump invoked a rarely used wartime law called the Alien Enemies Act to deport hundreds of alleged members of a Venezuelan gang from the United States to El Salvador. Now, those deportation flights were carried out on Saturday night, despite a federal judge telling the administration to turn the planes around and return to the United States as these legal issues were sorted out.
Well, things have been escalating, and Boasberg is not in a good mood.
All right, we turn now to the Trump administration standoff with a federal judge. U.S. District Judge James Boasberg now saying that the government appears to have acted in bad faith. This comes after the hearing wrapped just moments ago to determine whether or not the government violated his court order to stop the deportation flights, 2 of them, with alleged members of a gang to a mega prison in El Salvador.
She hated having to admit that they were gang members, bro.
Judge Boasberg really laid it on the government, and it really seemed like he is leaning towards initiating contempt proceedings. Now, what that's going to look like, we don't know.
I mean, this Boasberg guy is going for gold right now. He doesn't give a...
For more on this, we want to bring in former federal prosecutor Andrew Cherkasky on what happens next. Andrew, this battle between Judge Boasberg and the administration has gotten pretty nasty in recent days. Judge Boasberg was asking all sorts of questions about these deportation flights. The Trump administration invoked the state secrets clause, saying they're not going to answer it. Now the judge is saying, I might hold you guys in contempt of court for not turning those planes around when I ordered it. Where do you see this going next?
Well, what we're seeing here is a true battle between the judiciary and the executive. And it's totally unnecessary, I think, what Judge Boasberg is doing. He is trying to push to the extreme, to the maximum, the question of how far the courts can go in not only ruling on whether the executive is doing something that's lawful, but instead inserting himself in the seat of the president to effectively direct and control what happens in what are historically and constitutionally purely executive functions, like engagement in foreign policy, which includes immigration and border control, and what's next involving the courts in wartime decisions or in battlefield decisions. That's the slippery slope we're going to. But Judge Boasberg continues to press along here. This is going to have to get to the Supreme Court, and fast, I think.
It's almost like this Boasberg guy has skin in the game. Oh, wow. Look at this. Another shocking conflict of interest. Now, I know what you're thinking. Who knows how accurate Miss Fruit of the Looms is over here, but she's been right recently, and I double-checked this, dude. This checks out. It turns out Judge Boasberg has a brother, Mr. Tommy Boy Boasberg. And you know what Tommy Boy did? He served as an associate at Covington & Burling, a prominent DC law firm that recently gave former special counsel Jack Smith $140,000 worth in pro bono legal services. And you know what else? DACA immigrants are teaching American children. What happens when they're gone? Superintendent of Denver Public Schools has been panicking for weeks, ever since word spread that the Trump administration would end the deportation protection for Dreamers. Tom Boasberg has been vocal about the consequences. Good old Tommy Boy Boasberg. His firm defending special counsel Jack Smith, and he's the superintendent at the Denver Public Schools, specifically a school that hires DACA recipient teachers. Teachers who are DACA recipients. You know what I mean. What do you know? Another anti-Trump politician whose entire family is connected to that corporatist system provided special counsel Jack Smith with legal services for free. Tommy Boy's school even got a mention by the State Department. Isn't that amazing? That was in March of this year. And just so you know, I'm not showing you some random school, okay? The family of billionaire Eduardo Severin, who co-founded Facebook with Mark Zuckerberg, has made a $20 million donation to the Singapore American School, the institution announced. The donation is the largest gift in the school's history. Superintendent Tommy Boy Boasberg wrote in a weekly email sent on September 20th saying it would have a transformative effect on the institution. What a coincidence that this judge's family is heavily involved in the exact realm of interest that this judge is ruling on right now. It's almost like it demonstrates some sort of governing ideology that he places above the letter of the law itself. So I got curious, and I did a little too much research on the letter of the law when it comes to injunctions that a court can issue. And you guys gotta hear this.
Mr. Shoemate, what's a universal injunction?
Senator, a universal injunction is what we call an order from a court enjoining the government in a way that goes beyond the parties to the case, but applies nationwide or in some cases universally to enjoin the government.
Is it sometimes referred to as a nationwide injunction?
Yes, it is, Senator.
Okay. What's the statutory basis for a federal judge issuing an order that affects people other than the parties before the court?
I'm not aware of a statutory basis, Senator.
There is no statutory basis, is there?
No, Senator.
What's the United States Supreme Court opinion which interprets the Constitution in a way that allows a federal district court judge to do this? Can you name me that case?
I'm not aware of one, Senator.
There isn't one, is there?
I'm not aware of one, Senator.
Now, explain to me how this works. You have a plaintiff and you have a defendant, and the plaintiff files a lawsuit and goes in front of a federal judge. Federal judge has certain jurisdiction in personam and subject matter over the parties, the people, the plaintiff and the defendant. They're the only two people in court. How can a judge, a federal judge, issue an order that affects everybody else other than those in front of him or her? How is that possible?
It shouldn't be possible, Senator, but district courts do it all the time. I think on the theory that the courts need to enjoin a federal policy from going into effect, and they often will enjoin it as nationwide, so all non-parties are protected by that injunction.
I thought that if you wanted to affect parties who aren't in court, you had to file a class action.
That's correct, Senator.
So why don't the federal judges, instead of issuing a universal injunction with no legal basis, tell the plaintiff, look, you got to go file a class action if you want to impact parties who aren't subject to my court?
Senator, the Department of Justice makes that argument all the time in our briefs. I think in many cases class actions would be inappropriate. They wouldn't, the plaintiffs couldn't satisfy Rule 23 to establish a class.
So they couldn't?
Correct.
This is literally from uscourts.gov. The scope of injunctions are bound by the people who are in the court. This means a district court can't just issue willy-nilly a universal injunction that affects people outside of the court. A class action lawsuit needs to be issued in order for an injunction to affect an entire class. That was Rule 65D of injunctions. Rule 65C is that a bond has to be placed with an injunction in order to cover damages in case it's later found that that injunction was, in fact, not lawful. Since 1952, the courts have been expanding the power of injunctions, just pushing it farther and farther and waiting to see if anyone notices. And none of us did. That's 73 years. That blew my mind. We gotta get this judicial overreach in check. Let me know in the comments what your ideas are, guys. And let me know, man, did you already know about this? Is your mind as blown as mine is?